Hey, afternoon, world. It's Carm Capriato, Town Hall Academy, week 260. We're here to talk today about workplace motivation. Where would you rather be than right here, right now, taking on this single subject forum for all automotive aftermarket professionals? It's kind of like the service market's best kept secret to personal networking, as we are here, diligent every week, working on advancing the aftermarket. I've got a great panel here. Where are they? They're hidden in the background somewhere. I can't wait to introduce these guys. We're coming to you live from the Remarkable Results Radio podcast studio. And sometimes I call it my Carm Cave, as I keep adding stuff to the back wall. I know this video doesn't quite show that I keep adding stuff. By the way, I don't know if you see my Buffalo back there, but the Bills are playing in a divisional playoff this weekend, so everybody knows when we're recording this. Here's my guest, great contributor to my podcast, Brian Bates. Glad to have you here. Eagle Automotive, Littleton, Colorado, multi-shop owner. I mean, when's the world going to understand when I say MSO? That means multi-shop operator. I think it's pretty much understandable, right, Brian?
Oh, well, I hope so, but a lot of people don't understand what IRF means either when we're talking independent repair facility. But yeah, if you're in deep in owning multiple shops, then yeah, MSO pops out. Yeah.
It's MSO, four shops. Michael Smith is with us, managing partner, Herzberg Smith and Company. I asked him earlier, what is it that he really does? And he said, wow, we help build high performance companies, and then we help those high performance companies find high growth. Kind of a management consultant, but an all around nice guy. It's his first time here. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And another new voice to the podcast, Casey Mcgowan from Casey's Independent in Vancouver, Washington.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, Casey. When I think of Vancouver, Washington, him and I spoke this week. I always think it's close to Vancouver, but he told me you're not far from Portland.
Yeah, we're closer to Portland. We're in the southwest corner there.
In the southwest corner of the great state of Washington. Well, good. Yes, hey, guys. Look, I'm so happy to have you here. If you're with us on social media, please check in with your city. Give us a like, a share. We're hanging out on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, of course. Look, high fives up to our great sponsors. Let's face it, technicians are your inventory of time, and it's the only inventory that expires every minute of every single day. Maximize sales and speed to get the cars moving through your business faster. Learn more at getshopware.com. And lots of companies say they can help your shop get more reviews, but what do they really offer? Broadly is the only platform that partners with Google for reviews and messaging in the auto space. On the web at getbroadly.com/chat. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. Every Tuesday we do another live show like this, and we are going to go inside Brown's Auto Experts in New Mexico, in New Mexico, from Dustin Brown, and we're going to see inside his shop, and he's going to come on with me. We're going to talk a little bit about business. Hey, next week, interesting show, EV charging stations. Should you have one? I don't know. I mean, we could probably go on and on and on in that argument, and if there's any value in it. We've got Jeff Walter and Phil and Melody Heller that are in on it. They've got one, and Jeffrey Cho, he's the expert. So we're gonna have a really fun talk about the future of EVs, especially on the charging station side. Hey guys, let's. So here's what I want to know today. John is right. John Bachman's here with us on social media, and he says they're all rock stars, and I agree. Here's what I want to learn. The topics about workplace motivation. I've always known that we're only motivated from within. So how does a leader, if that's the case, how does a leader find and help a person to find his or her motivation trigger? I also want to learn what do goals have to do with motivation? And I also want to know, does career pathing help in setting a personal motivation? So Guys, this is a heavy topic, and I'm sure there's a ton of people in our industry that are just going to say, "This is too heavy for me. I need to get a drink before I get into this thing because I got to clear my mind." Because once Michael defines for us exactly what motivation really is, that's really sometimes difficult to bite off, Michael.
Yes. Yeah, it's difficult because we have a long history, I think, in industry, outside of this industry as well, across industry verticals, of believing that we can do things in a moment that are going to get people to do what we want them to do. And it's deeper than that. It's harder to get that done. To begin, motivation by definition psychologically is the internal energy to make a change or achieve a goal. Psychology doesn't consider it from outside, it considers it from inside. And so your original comment was right. It really does begin within. There are things we can do outside as organizations to build the pathway for them to follow, put the guardrails next to where we want them to go, get them all pointed in the right direction. This really comes down to understanding what are the needs of the individual and what is going to motivate them as an individual. And the job of the leader is to find out, this is where we need the team and the organization to go. Here's where the individuals are ramped up and ready to bring their energy to the table, and literally putting those two things together. And that takes us straight to goal setting. It takes to career pathing. It touches all the things that you're talking about institutionally.
Well, so here I'm realizing, guys, jump in any time, that I
Mhm.
I need to find some better motivation to get my butt out of bed in the morning, go out and enjoy the job that I have. And we all understand that it's internal motivation. Do I have to go out and get some help? Brian, if I worked for you, would I have to say, "Listen, boss, I kind of love the environment, but I just can't get charged up. Can you help me?"
Yeah, well, kind of leading into that with what Michael was saying is that it is an internal component of I think the human dynamic is to be motivated or not. And I'm a huge follower of Patrick Lencioni. I love listening and reading his work and whatnot. And in his in a lot of his stuff, he talks about having people that are hungry, humble, and smart, right? And that's really kind of a well balanced person, and he'll say that you can really teach humility. You can teach emotional intelligence. And that's what he talks about with being smart. But he says, boy, the hardest thing to teach somebody is that hunger, right? And that hunger really is innate or not. And so then when we're hiring people, we look for that. And we talk about, being driven, and ask them, simple questions. Were you in sports? What kind of person are you when things go wrong and when things go right, all that sort of stuff. And if we feel like that hunger isn't there, then we really pause and say, hey, maybe this isn't the right guy for the position, because we don't want to spend a lot of time finding that internal motivation. But what, like Michael said, is we want to give them a path to take that energy and say, let's take the motivation and your goal setting and the drive to get to this particular place, whether it's money driven or kind of a value driven, that they want to come away with a value of being part of a team and building something, all those sorts of things, right? And let's take that and give you a way to achieve those things, because you already have that drive from within. And I think when we talk about motivation, we've probably all, if we've been in this business for more than 3 months, we've probably all ran across somebody that is just like, man, that guy's a good guy, but boy, just like trying to drag an anchor along with us. It just, like, you're constantly having to, hey, what are you doing now, what's going on, that sort of thing. And you finally realize that the guy just wants to show up and check and just check in and mail it in. So making sure that you've got the right people, then you can start getting into what I really like and what I have a lot of fun doing, is actually giving people the opportunity to be successful, whatever that success means. And so when you're looking from a company standpoint, and having that relationship, that you identify that we do have the same goals, and that if the individual is reaches success, that contributes to success of the company. If the company reaches success, that's because people that are in the company are achieving success individually, making a collective success. So again, kind of back to the point, like, hey, you got to start off with that motivated individual, and then when they show up, you gotta provide them a path and a way to succeed.
Thank you, brilliant, Brian. I appreciate that. One of the things, Casey, that Brian he used the word pay in there,
Mhm.
and so if I knock on your door, Casey, and I says, hey, boss, I want to talk to you, and I'm really coming to you, to help me, find my way, if you will. But so many owners out there, you know what happens? Oh, cripe, he wants to talk about pay. And I think you're a believer that we can't look at it that it's just about pay. There's other things.
It's so much more than that. Right from the interview process for me, we don't usually we always focus in on where do you want to be? I mean, what's your end goal here? Do you want to be an owner? Do you if you're a technician, do you see yourself being a technician your whole? We like to. And I think it's really important to find a vision for them, and paint your vision, and so they understand that. Look, you know what? For me, I was a technician. I went to tech school. I mean, this is where I started, and I've been so fortunate that where we can go with this, and that to me is hugely important to motivate the person right from the set the goal from the beginning, that because most interviewers that you get a technician, a service advisor that might want to be a manager that might be a GM or an owner. Those are the paths that I think that right from the word go, you kind of get a sense of where people are and where they, what their future. And I have to say, right now is the best time. What's going on right now, I believe people are so open-minded for change. We just went through a bit of a turmoil in the last 2 years, and I'm probably understating it a bit. But the bottom line is, this is people are thinking about things they haven't thought about. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've met, even my employees and outside of my business, that are not sure where they're going. I mean, they're leaving good jobs, they're leaving states they've lived in their whole lives. They're open for change. So if you can communicate with your employees and motivate them now to say, let's talk about a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let's just talk about it. It doesn't have to be written in stone, but it really needs to be talked about, because you're never going to get to any goal unless you know the path to get there, and you got to know what you want. And if you want it, you can vision it, you can get it. And I truly believe it. I think the motivation is that where it starts with your team. So that's kind of where I stand on it. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think that does all come back to um, making sure that when they do show up, that there is something that keeps them looking towards the horizon and constantly looking for those goals. And when you're looking at pay, Kent had said, hey, look, if your biggest hurdle discussion is pay, you've got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
You're right. That should be, hey, look, you're going to get paid fairly here, and we know that this is what your value is, depending on the production skill level, experience, all that sort of stuff. But let's really focus on this. And I equate it to when you're selling a job to a customer, that if all you're talking about is price, then that's a huge problem, right? And all you do is commoditize what you're doing, and then you end up getting the customer in the mindset of selling or purchasing from the lowest bidder. Whereas when you're selling a job, in our world, and most of the people that are in a good quality shop, they do have to address price, but it's the value that's added in there. And for a technician or any employee that joins your team, the real cost of this is going to be the time that they spend with you, right? That's what they're investing with you. And so the question is, how much am I going to be compensated, because I need that to live and to enjoy life outside of this. But while I'm here, I'm going to be spending a lot of time here, and what can you offer me that's going to make me happy while while I'm here. And the rock stars that you're looking for, they want to grow, right? They want to be a part of a winning team. They want to build things. They want to be around people that are fun and energized and motivated as well. And those are the people that you're really looking for. So one of the things that we really have found is very motivational is the growth aspect of it, right? And Michael, when he and I first met, he just kind of kept preaching, hey, look, people want to grow, the rock stars want to grow. And you start talking about that to people on your team and people that are potentially coming into your team that are candidates. You say, hey, look, you keep talking growth, and those people light up when we want to when you talk about the company growing. But if you're stagnant and the company's been like this for the last 30 years and we have no plans to change, then you're not going to attract those top people, those motivated people, and so you're going to have a big challenge on your hand. Growing is extremely challenging, but so is remaining stagnant.
Yeah, can I add to this? One of the science believes that all humans, regardless of culture, race, background, anything, gender, are all wired the same way, that we want to climb 3 stages in life. We want to first make sure our physical needs are met. I'm going to put a context of where salary fits in this. The second, when we get our physical needs met, we want our psychological needs met. And those are things like belonging to a group, being able to be part of a functional team, having self-esteem, having others' esteem where people feel good about you. And the third layer that people want to climb up into is their self-fulfillment needs. And that's self-actualization and ultimately transcendence, finding some meaning in what they do. I brought all that out just to say, when we talk about salary is a terrible motivator, quote, from the standpoint that it really only covers the physical needs component. You can't pay somebody enough to make them feel self-fulfilled. There are aspects of it that make you feel better because you out earn your friends. But the reality is the pay thing, once it takes care of your basic physical needs, you're out of the pay structure. You got to move into something else. So we have to start putting teamwork together, and we have to start teaching people how to belong. And this is easier said than done. We've all got those people on our teams that come from dysfunctional families or come from backgrounds, even in an industry where they've had terrible bosses before, where it's sarcastic and mean and there's no development, there's nothing positive in it at all. They bring that to you when they start working with you. So just because they get there and they know how to fix a car, it doesn't mean they know how to have a healthy relationship with the people around them. And so that's part of what Brian's talking about. And Casey, when you go to look for the right kind of talent that you want on your team, you'd like to be able to go deeper on this stuff with your candidates and find out, what's your background? How do you feel about belonging to a team? Where have you belonged to good groups and where haven't you? And where didn't it work very well? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about the others around you? And then what do you like to learn? And there will be some people who have been trained by life to say, I don't want to grow. I want to stay stuck where I am. I spent a good chunk of my life trying to save those people and talk them out of being stuck there. Can't do it. If they want to stay stuck there, they are. So in the recruiting and then the development model, where you're helping to build a pathway for people to climb this ladder, finding when you lose somebody who doesn't want to play this new growth game that you have, you go out and find somebody who's already into that model and likes it. And in essence, you're building a team of masters. You're finding people who want to grow and keep growing, push their comfort zones out, stand on the other side of it, and you build a culture that supports that. You can do extraordinary things as a company.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head. The culture. It really is about the culture of your. We talk about it constantly. It's not just a tag word. It really is something that you have to pay attention to. I can pretty much, when I'm with my manager, that's something that we talk about a lot. Is, do you feel when somebody is not happy? When you walk into the shop or the front counter or the parts department, and you look around and you can tell, these people well enough. I mean, they're close to you. You got to focus in on, there's something eating at them. And I know because of the last few years, it's been hard. It's been a bit masked, but you really need to focus in on the fact that they might not be where they want to be, and that's the time. It's the time to talk to them about the picture, the vision, and revisiting it and making sure that they're really on a path that they know that they're important. I mean, they're, why do most people leave their jobs? I mean, I think you'll find everybody will agree. It's not about the money 9 times out of 10.
No.
It's about what the environment is. Are they happy? Do people treat them like humans? Are they being, are they when they come to work, do they dread it? I know it's cliche. We talk about culture a lot, but it's very, very important in what we're talking about motivation wise, in my opinion.
I got to stop for a moment and throw this in. Who is it that said rock stars want to grow? I can't remember if that was Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about that inside the industry. The top shops, they're always looking to hire rock stars, and they're always looking for improvements. God help it, you got a staff of rock stars. Your job's harder than you ever thought. Just keep
It's actually
keep
not.
it. It's
It's easier. It's easier.
thank you, Michael. Help me
Yeah,
understand that. But as a leader, you've got to change to understand how that
absolutely.
works.
Well, I
Absolutely.
think the fun part about that is that you do move into a different level of ownership and a different role in ownership, right? And if you don't have very highly motivated, competent people, then you get into the situation where you kind of live your life down in the operations and the daily tasks and managing people and trying to get them to do the right thing and SOPs and disciplinary and all that sort of stuff, right? So those people are not going to push you very hard to grow yourself. But when you pull in people that are highly motivated and competent, then all of a sudden you move into a role of, now I have to grow the company. Now I have to provide the things that these people are looking for. And those people are not looking for standard operating procedures. They're not looking
Yeah.
for, how many times is the neighbor being disciplined or anything like that. What they're looking for is, I'm doing my job very well, and I want to see that growth and that value that I'm added in adding into the company. I want to see that turning into more opportunities for me. And how do those opportunities come about? Well, it's because the company's growing and more positions are opening up, and it's expanding, right? And that's kind of where for me, that's where the fun part is, because then they push me to get better too.
Well, and can I add something real quick to it, Carm? One of the things that
Sure.
Brian's onto, sorry, brother, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to add to what Brian's saying, and then I'll zip it. But when you talk about going to turn your company over and potentially sell it someday, at the end of your legacy building life that you have, the buyer who will pay you the most money for it is the one who sees you as a person that can hand them the keys and walk away. And it keeps going the same way it was without you. If you're stuck in operations, you're stuck in mitigating people problems, you're stuck in fixing financial problems, you can't walk away. You don't walk away with as much value. So what Brian's talking about, if you got a team of rock stars and they run this thing like a machine, and I think I saw Kent weigh in and say they sort of do some self-disciplining and drive themselves higher, you're in a position to get the greatest value out of your lifetime investment as well at the end, if you put yourself in a position to have these people running the company for you, basically.
Good stuff, guys. Let's just get ready to go into segment B here. I want to stop for
Sure.
one moment. I love where this is going. Thank you all so much. How much paper have you touched today? Those are piles of time stacked all over the shop. Now, think of what you could do with that time and how many more cars you could get through the door. Cha-ching! It's time for a digital shop management system on the web at getshopware.com. Hey, looking to upgrade your website and make it easier for customers to connect with your shop? Let Broadly build you a professional, responsive website so you can be proud to show it off on the web at getbroadly.com/chat. Casey, you've got a staff of rock stars. Help me set some achievable goals.
Well, that's an individual. If it depending on the individual. For a technician, it starts off with, usually it's a production goal. Maybe, I want to be more efficient. I need to. I have a goal of baby. We call them baby step goals. We really do. It's we start off small, and I'm a firm believer in, if you can achieve the first one and know where the second goal is, you can get there. And I'm not a believer in setting a carrot out and keep pulling it out from under somebody, and that happens too much. I have a lot of employees that have been through that. So when I start talking about where we can get together, I can see their eyes start to glaze over, and I know I'm starting to lose them, and so the proof's in the pudding. So it's different. Technicians, service advisors, managers, they all have their path. And I think talking about it is the number one, revisiting with them, especially on character building moments, like we like to call our bad days. And and remember that this is just a bump in the road, and we're going to get to where we need to go. Don't forget about the big picture, if whatever that might be for that individual. And my manager, it's like Brian said, the hardest thing to do is change that hat from being a direct owner to being an owner with management team below him, because then you have to instill these paying attention to it. Did somebody lose their way? And we talk about retention of our employees. You need to be constantly, the cars are going to get fixed. We've got great technicians but if they lose their path, they might find somewhere else to do it. So I think the recognizing from management position and bringing it to the attention of hey, I think maybe this person has forgotten what their end game is, for the next 3 quarters, so to speak. I like a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year thing. I mean, start with 1 year, even 6 months, couple of quarters. I always joke, and I think I said this to you, Carm, when I talk to you. I kind of look at the year in oil changes. It's a joke. I use it all the time. I'm saying, hey, we're one oil change away from spring. Let's put a smile on our face, right? So if it's that simple and it's that short, and the goal is to get through the cold days and make it simple. It doesn't have, and financial is usually a really bad goal. It could be a team goal too, and so it just depends on the individual.
Hey guys, we got to take Brian. Hang on one second. We got to. That's a takeaway. We're one oil change away from spring. I mean,
I did trademark that.
It's all about perspective.
You should, because that is it. In my mind, I can relate to it. I know what it means, and it gives me spirit. Wow, and every day you keep saying that, and guess what? Spring will be here.
Christmas
By
will
the
be
way,
here.
yeah, I want to thank Nathan Adcock. He kind of been hanging out with us for a while. He's out in Scotland. Good to have you. I don't know. Scotland must be like 10 o'clock at night or something. And Kent, thank you so much for all your great comments. Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had to jump in on that.
It's a great segue, because I was about ready to talk about Nathan. He said Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I think that's a lot of what we're talking about. And if as a shop owner or just a manager leader, you don't understand that concept, you really are missing out on a great foundation for understanding people. But what's interesting is Maslow came out in the 40s, 30s and 40s, and he kind of developed that. But about 10, 15 years later, a guy named Frederick Hertzberg came back, and he was really looking at industrial psychology on that same level. And what he found was that if you get rid of the things that and handle well, not great, but well, the things that make people upset about coming to work, then you can go into starting to motivate people by what really drives them and what really lights them up. So when you talk about things that make people unhappy about work, then you're talking about the working conditions, relationships with their coworkers, policies, procedures, supervisor, quality, base pay, and salary. Those sorts of things, really can create a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of noise in the work area that is really tough to come over, probably impossible to come over if somebody feels like their working conditions are unsafe or unclean, or their policies and rules get in the way of them being successful. But once you kind of create that environment and get rid of that noise, now all of a sudden you can go into the fun stuff, which is helping people find achievement, giving them recognition, increasing their responsibility, making sure that the work itself is meaningful, advancement in the company, and personal growth as well. Meaningful work, knowing that what we do means a whole lot to a whole lot of people, not just the customer, but to their team members, to their families, to the community, those sorts of things. That's what's really fun, right? And you don't get the right to play in that space and talk in that space if your working conditions are terrible, if the coworkers aren't getting along with each other, if you put a bunch of policies and rules in place that really, kick people in the shins and they don't allow them to grow. A good example of that is I get all the oil changes and Joe gets all the gravy. I mean, that's a policy procedure that will demotivate somebody in a big way, and they're really not interested in how meaningful the work is or about their own achievement and recognition, because they're upset about not being treated fairly. So when you start talking about the basis for that motivation, that's really where I started. And Casey had talked about talking about goals and getting things going, and I think that's a big part of that, right? And really, when I start having a conversation with somebody about their career path and how happy they are in the company and motivating them, the first thing I want to say is, hey, look, how are things at the shop? Where's your head at with all of these items that can create a lot of dissatisfaction? Okay, let's take care of those for you. The equipment isn't right, let me get you the right equipment or get that equipment fixed. Then let's start talking about, hey, how do you feel about the shop? Where are you wanting to go 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road? Do you realize how important it is what you do? And relating that to having a sense that the work that they're doing is very meaningful, and then making sure that on a regular basis that that we recognize them, that we tell them how much we appreciate them, and that and Casey had mentioned it, that money isn't everything. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, when I'm interviewing somebody that's leaving a company, they will, in some form or fashion, if they don't come right out and say it all flat out, they will tell you, I don't feel appreciated where I'm at. I don't feel like the work that I'm putting in there gets recognized, and they don't realize how much work I'm doing. So I'm looking to go somewhere where my input is valued. So there's a lot that goes into this, and our jobs get very busy. And that's where I was kind of talking about before the break, is that, when you bring people that are motivated, that want these things, that are driven by all this stuff, your job becomes a lot more. Well, like Mike said, I don't know that there's more work or less work, but it's certainly a lot funner and it's more rewarding to deal with that sort of stuff. And so as owners, at least myself, but I think most owners, they want to live up in that, hey, I'm building something that I can look back on 5, 10, 20 years from now and say, man, that was really cool what I did there. A lot of people appreciated it. I achieved a ton of stuff. People recognized me, and I got tons of recognition as I went through this, and as I left the industry and retired as the guy that did this, and this. And it's all the same, right? It's just your role in the company becomes different when you're doing that, and you're bringing people along that are motivated by those sorts of things. And so when you give that to them, then they give more of it back to you, and then you give more of it back to them, and it just starts feeding on itself. So to me, that's where that's where all the action is, right? That's where the fun is, and not just this industry, but any business. That's where the fun is in life in general, is just getting people motivating and seeing you feed off of each other and pushing each other to grow.
Yeah, it's like it's like the startups that you see that are so successful when they're the young, aggressive. They're very, very motivated, and when you see a startup where everybody's rowing in the same direction, it's incredible to see where they can go, and that always gives me goosebumps when I see, you see them, and you think back in the past when you noticed them coming, just barely coming up, and now they're huge. And you knew at the beginning that it wasn't just the visionary, that it was the fact that they were able to portray that vision to all of their people, and everybody got excited about it. And just like Brian said, that excitement it really is. It's contagious, and it's a good contagion.
When you go, when you're a startup and you're looking to recruit, hire a team, what do you have to sell? Your vision, the goals that you have to build this new widget, this new piece of software, this new service company, whatever it is. And the people who want to come to work for you are excited about that. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And we get a little stodgy after we're in business for 5, 10, whatever the number is. And we just, okay, well, I have a tech. If someone can fog the mirror, let's bring them on, because great points. By the way, Michael, you've got so much great things to say. One of the things you told me is that, listen, incentive pay plans and all those things, Carm, are not necessarily marginally effective. So tell us about that.
pay plans what the science says is that pay plans need to bring you up to market and then leave it there. In other words, you can overpay people significantly and it doesn't change their internal motivation whatsoever. Once their basic needs are met, they're fine. So we have this huge misunderstanding in industry that giant bonus programs drive different kinds of behavior, and it's marginally effective. Now, the one thing I'll say is we all know salespeople. We have front desk people. They have been enculturated throughout the centuries, I suppose, that pay and performance are tied together. So for them, pay and bonus plans are more effective than for techs, for managers, right? Well, one of the things we lose in motivation and goal setting when we think about it is the fact that every employee is on a track and they're either an apprentice or a journeyman or a master of the space that they're in. And each of those three categories requires different things. They need different things to develop. They need different things from their managers. They need different kinds of goals. And what I want to say is we set a corporate goal of let's grow the company X percentage of revenue, and we slap it out there and we automatically think everybody at every level is going to understand what their contribution to that is. The apprentice is maybe what we would call a conscious incompetent. They don't know what they don't know. They're starting to know what they don't know. They don't know what to do next. You better tell them. So they need very refined goal setting. It motivates them to know how to succeed. As soon as you give them recognition, they're thrilled about that. Journey people are like, look, less micromanagement, more freedom. Tell me what I need to do. If I get stuck, I want somebody to turn to, but I kind of want to figure it out for myself. Masters have learned to stand on their own. They want the data. They want the accountability for self. So when you set goals for masters, you say, look, I want you to tell me what you want to do to contribute to the company. And the master will say, this is where I want to grow. And it's up to you to figure out how to help tune their desire into what you want the company to be. And this is where it gets to be an art. Right? We think that if we just throw out some high level company goals, it's all going to work out and people will be motivated. The connections are not there. You have to drive the connections down to the individual. You have to understand what their contribution is going to be, and you have to get them excited to bring their own personal growth energy back to what you're trying to achieve. And when you can do that one by one and mass it together in a way that you get your corporate goals done, then you fly. You fly like you never have before. So there's an art to goal setting that actually motivates the energy from within people to join you in what you want to accomplish at the corporate level.
Well, good stuff, guys. I want to come back and do segment B. I have a lot of unanswered questions because you guys have just, wow. Frankly, a very brilliant discussion, but a very heavy discussion. And it's probably well worth anyone who's listening to this, as a repurposed podcast down the road to probably have to listen a couple of times just to get everything that's here. Hey, our great partners, every piece of paper you touch adds up to seconds, minutes, and hours of your staff's time. Get paper out of your business and unlock your employees' potential with Shopware's digital shop management software on the web at getshopware.com. And are you missing out on customers who call the shop during off hours? Well, with Broadly's web chat feature, customers can get the answers they need even when you're not in the shop on the web at getbroadly.com/chat. I'm not even sure that this thing connects. We did a show, a podcast, Town Hall Academy, a couple of weeks ago on apathy in your business. One of the pointers that came up, which I thought was so interesting, is one of the shop owners says he asks 3 questions of his people, rate on 1 to 10. How are you with me? How are you with the company? How are you with you? And so with those as ideas, guys, what are some questions, Michael, Casey, Brian, that we could ask our people to help discover what some of those motivation pointers could be, or how to solve some of their issues?
Right. I love those 3 questions. And I think, even if you boil it down with, hey, how are you? How are we? The company, like Casey said, knowing and having a finger on that pulse is extremely important as well. And having the ability to make sure that if you are running an MSO like we are, that those people that are in charge and they're there and they're in leadership positions on a daily basis, that they have that connection with their team members. But if you're in the shop every day, then it is a huge part of your job to go around and make sure that people know, or that you know how what the mood is with everybody. And so I think, on a regular basis, that there's several different times that you have to go through and talk to people and create those connections and give them the appreciation and let them know how much you appreciate them, and let them know that you are approachable and that you want them to be enfranchised and to have a say in what's going on with the company, that this is a collaborative company and you have a voice here. And so I don't know that there's a bunch of different phrases or anything. I think for me it really boils down to just talking to people and just knowing about their family, and saying, hey, how's everything going, how are you doing, how's the wife, what'd you do over the weekend, what, and just getting people to talk, and then truly listening to them and letting them know that you're excited for them, or that that you feel bad that something bad has happened, that sort of thing. Dr. Henry Cloud, he wrote a book called the Power of the Other, and it's a fantastic book. But really, what he says is there's really four corners of communication. Four areas of communication. One is just complete disconnect. You don't communicate with somebody. The other one is a false sense of communication, where it's kind of dysfunctional, but everybody pretends they're happy. There's this toxic level of communication where there's a lot of dysfunction, and you can't solve problems. But then there's this area where people are especially friends, right? That they celebrate the victories with you. They challenge you when you're not doing your best. They console you when something bad has happened, and they ask you how they can help. They're there for you to help. And for me, I think the closer you can get to that with people on your team, that they know that you are a true, genuine person, and it's not this, false, or there's not this disconnection, or that there's not this dysfunction. That's where you really want to be, and those are the connections, really in life, that you really that you search for, right? When you find you're like, man, that guy is like a lifetime friend. He's a gem. He's somebody that you don't find very often. Those are the people in life and the reason why they're those rare gems that you run across in life as friends, or people you run into, is because you can trust them in all those areas, that they're going to be there, and that they're a genuine person, and that they're not just, pumping your tires up, or that they don't care and they're disconnected.
Well, hey, look, I want to let that be your last word. I also want to bring up something that Kent just said. Kent, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Great stuff. Your attention creates the reality. And I love that. I mean, if we're not paying attention to our people, they don't think we care, and it's just a job. And your attention to people allows you, if you're open enough and caring enough,
Yeah.
to know what their goals are, and to try to get them to achieve them. Another big takeaway that I heard from you as we were talking about asking these three questions, Brian, I love the way you sum that up. You, we, and me. You being you, we being the company, and me being your leader. Let's just talk about us or rate us, and if the rating doesn't come up to your satisfaction level, there's the gap. There's the gap to talk about, right? And how do you fill it? Hey, Michael, I'm going to give you the last word. Casey, anything we wanted to cover that you wanted to cover that you didn't?
Well, no, I just think that Brian just summed it up really well. I think it really, one of the things that I just would add is, as you choose a supervisor slash manager, somebody that that connection, that human connection, that you need to feel it with that person, because I think they're that's probably one of the big struggles as shop owners, moving to managers and trusting and instilling, not chopping them off at the knees, letting them make those decisions, but they need to have your core values at heart. And when you find that person, it's a golden opportunity, because you know they're going to let them make their decisions. They're going to make mistakes, but they're the ones that are going to portray your true feelings of your employees when you're not there. And you can't always be there. You definitely can go and you can speak with your employees, but you want your supervisor or manager to have your core values at heart. And I think Brian summed it up really well. The way, I wrote it down: me, you, and us. I mean, that's very powerful stuff.
Yeah, cool. Glad to hear that, and I think that's a really big takeaway, and something that you can start tomorrow, Monday, with
Yeah.
in your own business. Michael Smith,
Yes.
the last word.
Real quick, I think I often share with clients and friends to think about their company as a skyscraper that needs to be on a big foundation, not a neighborhood of little storehouses. And if you're going to do that, the foundation needs to be grounded in your purpose and your character. You need to have a direction that's both aspirational and inspirational, and you need to have a character that people can aspire to. Last word is, if your leaders don't walk that out, you're already toast. You got to make sure the leaders believe in what you do and they're pulling the rope in the same direction. And they are your field people who make sure that your team gets it in the momentary decisions of every day. And with that foundation, with strong leadership, you will end up with the unicorn team, the rock star team that you want. That's my last thought. So
Thank you so much, guys. The more we get into these really big, important, and heavy topics, and Brian, thank you so much for being on a show a while back, and you said the words to me, workplace motivation, and I wrote it down, right? And so here it became a show, and so thank you for bringing that to me, and coming back on, and bringing Casey and actual Michael with you. But guys, when I think about the level of the topics and the heaviness of some of the discussions that we have, it's got to be waking up the eyes of the shop owners that are out there that have said, I never went to school for this, I wasn't prepared for this, and I have to step up, not only one or two steps, but a whole ladder's worth of leadership, and to get my company. This is who you're competing with. You're competing with the likes of Brian and Casey that have gone to a brand new level and are hiring rock stars. Don't be bashful to want to tackle this level and form of leadership, because that you're if you don't, you'll be out, and it won't take long for you to maybe put up your hand and say, Brian, I'm closing my shop. Can I come to work for you? I'd just love to turn wrenches, because it's much too hard to run a great business. That is not necessarily the truth, because there's so much help to get. And as an example from the Institute, Ken was here, business coach. There's so much help out there. You don't have to do this alone. And Michael, you know that perfectly, right?
yes, it's my pleasure to help people. So.
Yeah, me too. This is what we do, and we get great people on, like Brian, like Casey, each and every week with each and every podcast, over 1,000 of these. So Brian Bates, Eagle Automotive, Littleton, Colorado, MSO with 4 shops. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Michael Smith, managing partner, Herzberg Smith and Company, building high profit companies, and Casey Mcgowan, Pendant, Vancouver, Washington. Hey guys, high five. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carm.